All right, so ready to untangle this IPO.
Let's do it.
We're doing a deep dive on Sanathan Textiles.
Yeah.
This Indian company is getting ready to go public.
Right.
Now, you might be thinking textiles.
Mm.
How exciting can that be?
Right.
But stick with us, okay?
Okay.
We've got a stack of prospectuses here.
Yeah.
One filed back in August,
Mm-hmm.
and then they filed a more detailed one in December.
Oh, wow.
And they reveal some fascinating insights
Oh, interesting.
into a company that's kind of quietly weaving their way into the global market.
What I think is really fascinating about Sanathan Textiles is that they're not just churning out basic fabrics.
Right?
They're actually a major player in yarn production.
Sure.
And they specialize in everything from cotton and polyester
Yeah.
to those high-tech industrial threads.
Yeah. I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
That they're even making yarns for car parts.
Yeah, they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
But before we get too far ahead, let's
Okay.
break down their business model. So what's the revenue mix like? Like, what are they really banking on here?
So their bread and butter is definitely polyester yarn.
Okay.
Looking at the numbers from recent years,
Mm-hmm.
that accounts for over 70% of their revenue.
Wow. Okay.
Cotton yarn comes in second at around 18%.
Right.
And then they've got that kind of niche market
Yeah.
of specialized yarns rounding out the rest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so polyester is king,
Right.
but it sounds like they're not putting all their eggs in one basket.
Exactly.
Now, the prospectus also highlights this growing global trend
Mm-hmm.
away from cotton
Yeah.
and towards polyester.
Interesting.
So could this be a strategic advantage for Sanathan?
It certainly could.
We-
If that trend continues and
Yeah.
Sanathan can kind of maintain its dominance in polyester production,
Yeah.
they could be very well positioned
Right.
for future growth.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
So they've got this potentially,
Hmm.
lucrative focus on polyester.
Yes.
How's their financial performance been lately?
Mm.
Are they actually spinning profits?
Well, the numbers tell a little bit of a mixed story.
Okay.
So while their revenue remained fairly steady
Hmm.
in fiscal 22 and 23,
Okay.
there's been a noticeable dip in the first quarter of 2024.
What's driving that dip?
Well,
Did something happen in the market?
yeah, it seems the culprit is a drop
Okay.
in the average selling price
Got it.
for both polyester and cotton yarn.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Raw material prices can be so volatile,
Right.
and that's directly impacting
Exactly.
the price of the final product.
Right.
But what about their overall profitability?
Right.
What do their EBITDA margins look like?
Mm-hmm.
And profit after tax?
Okay.
PAT for those keeping score at home.
Both EBITDA margins and PAT
Okay.
took a hit
Okay.
in fiscal 2024 compared to the previous year.
Got it.
This is definitely something
Yeah.
that potential investors will
Right.
want to scrutinize.
Yeah, some warning signs on the financial front.
Hmm.
But let's not forget, they're gearing up for this IPO.
Right.
So what can you tell us about that?
Well,
How much money are they hoping to raise?
right.
And what's the plan with those funds?
So the prospectus outlines a mix
Okay.
of fresh shares being issued by the company
Mm-hmm.
and shares being sold by existing shareholders,
Interesting.
including some members of the Ditani family,
Oh, interesting.
who are key figures
Right.
in Sanathan.
So some of the existing stakeholders are taking this opportunity
Yeah.
to cash out a bit.
Right.
So what's the thinking behind that? Could that be a red flag for potential investors?
It's not necessarily a
Oh.
bad sign.
Okay.
It could be
Yeah.
a way for them to diversify investments
Okay.
or maybe even free up some capital
Right.
for other ventures.
Got it.
But it's definitely something to consider.
Right. It's always good to understand
Yeah.
the motivations behind these moves.
Yeah.
So what about the money they're raising through the IPO?
Right.
Where's that cash going?
So they plan to use the proceeds for a couple of key things.
Okay.
First, they want to tackle their debt,
Okay.
which currently stands at over $413.9 million.
Got it.
Second, they're looking to invest in a subsidiary
Okay.
focused on, you guessed it, polyester yarn production.
So paying down debt and doubling down on
Mhm.
their most profitable product line.
Exactly.
That's like a pretty sensible strategy.
It does.
But as we all know,
Yeah,
every business faces risks.
of course.
So what are some of the major ones that
Ugh.
Sanathan highlights in their prospectus?
One of the biggest risks they acknowledge is the volatility
Makes sense.
of raw material prices.
Yeah.
As we saw with that recent dip in selling prices,
Right.
fluctuations in the cost of cotton and polyester can really directly impact their bottom line.
Right. They're at the mercy of
Yeah.
the global commodity market.
Yeah.
In many ways.
For sure.
But are there any other risks they're
Well,
concerned about?
another key risk they highlight is their dependence on exports.
Okay.
They're shipping their yarns to over 25 countries,
Wow.
which is great
Yeah.
for global reach,
Right.
but also makes them vulnerable
Right.
to economic and political shifts
Yeah.
in those markets.
It's a delicate balancing act, isn't it?
It is.
You want to diversify.
Yeah.
But too much reliance on any one region
Yeah,
can come back to bite you.
exactly.
What about the regulatory landscape?
Right.
Any concerns there?
The textile industry, like many others, is subject to kind of a web of environmental regulations.
Right.
And Sanathan acknowledges that changes in those rules
Yeah.
could increase their costs
Yeah.
or even disrupt their operations.
Right.
They're particularly focused on water usage and waste management,
Got it.
which are, hot button issues in the industry.
So they've got their work cut out for them,
They do.
navigating these risks.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, they're also making some bold moves to expand their operations.
Right.
So what can you tell us
Yeah.
about their expansion plans?
They're in the process of building
Okay.
a brand new manufacturing facility
Okay.
in Punjab, India.
Right.
And this is dedicated
Okay.
entirely to polyester yarn production.
A new facility, huh? That sounds ambitious.
Yeah.
What's the rationale behind this expansion?
It's not just about churning out more yarn.
Okay.
This new facility is being built with a zero liquid discharge solution.
What does that mean?
That means that no wastewater is released into the environment.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
They're really thinking long term,
Right.
trying to anticipate
Yeah, actually.
the demands of a changing market.
Yeah.
It seems like Sanathan Textiles is a company with a lot of moving parts.
A lot going on.
Strong revenue from polyester,
Yeah.
some financial headwinds,
Yeah.
big IPO on the horizon, ambitious expansion plans,
Yeah.
and a whole host of risks to navigate.
For sure.
It's a complex picture.
It is.
But I think that's what makes this deep dive so interesting.
I agree.
There's a lot to unpack here, and plenty of potential for both rewards and risks
Yeah.
for potential investors.
Absolutely.
So stay tuned as we continue to unravel the threads
Okay.
of Sanathan Textiles' story in part 2 of this deep dive.
Sounds good.
We'll delve deeper into their market position,
Okay.
explore their competitive landscape, and take a closer look at the team steering this ship.
I'm looking forward to it. Welcome back to our deep dive on Sanathan Textiles.
So in the last part, we explored their business model.
Yeah.
We looked at their financials.
Right.
And we kind of mapped out some of the key risks
Right. Exactly.
they'd outlined in their prospectuses.
Yeah.
Now, we learned that while polyester yarn is their star performer,
Yeah.
they're facing some challenges
Yes.
with profitability, and they're carrying a pretty hefty debt load.
Right.
Today, I want to shift our focus to their position in the market.
Okay.
How do they stack up against the competition?
Right.
Are they a big fish in this textile pond?
Well, they're definitely making waves.
Okay.
But, it's a vast ocean out there.
Right.
The textile industry is incredibly competitive with
Yeah.
some, major players really dominating the scene.
Okay.
Sanathan's prospectus specifically mentions a few:
Okay.
Alok Industries, Grasim Industries,
Okay.
and Wellspun India
Got it.
as key competitors.
Right.
These are all really well-established companies with significant market share and resources.
So they're going up against some heavy hitters.
They are?
So how does Sanathan differentiate itself
Yeah.
in such a crowded market?
Right.
What's their unique selling proposition?
Well, while they might not have the same scale as those giants, Sanathan seems to be focusing on carving out a niche with their specialized industrial and technical yarns.
Right.
So this strategic move allows them to kind of target specific segments of the market
Got it.
where they can command higher margins
Right.
and kind of build a strong reputation for their expertise.
It's like finding a lane in a crowded swimming pool.
Exactly.
Focusing on those specialized yarns
Yeah.
could be a smart way
They could.
to avoid getting trampled by the bigger players.
Right.
But let's not forget their global ambitions.
Of course.
We talked about their export activities earlier.
Yeah.
So how much of their revenue comes from international markets?
Well, Sanathan's prospectuses reveal that they're exporting to over 25 countries.
Wow.
Which is pretty impressive.
That is.
But they haven't actually disclosed exactly what percentage of their total revenue comes from those exports.
Okay, so they're playing on the global stage.
They are.
But we don't have a clear picture of how much they rely on those international markets.
Right.
So this raises questions about, their exposure to geopolitical risks and currency fluctuations.
Right.
Now, behind every successful company, there's a strong leadership team.
Absolutely.
So what can you tell us
Yeah.
about the people at the helm of Sanathan Textiles?
Well, the Dattani family holds a pretty prominent position within the company.
All right.
Paresh Fazlal Dattani serves as both chairman and managing director.
Interesting.
Which suggests a pretty strong family influence.
A family-run business. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, family businesses can be incredibly resilient, adaptable, but they also can face challenges with the succession planning and maintaining professional governance.
Exactly.
What's the track record of the Dattani family?
Well, they've been in the textile game for decades.
Okay.
And they have a history of successfully scaling businesses.
Okay.
So their experience and their deep understanding of the industry could be a valuable asset to Sanathan.
Yeah.
Especially as they navigate this IPO and their ambitious expansion plans.
So experience definitely counts for a lot.
Yeah.
In a complex industry like textiles.
For sure.
But investors will also want to know about the company's long-term vision.
Yeah.
What's Sanathan's growth strategy? Where do they see themselves in 5 or 10 years?
Their prospectuses highlight a few key areas that they're betting on for future growth. First, they're banking on the continued global shift from cotton to polyester.
Okay, so they're riding that polyester wave, as we discussed earlier.
Exactly.
What else is on their growth agenda?
They're also really keen on
expanding their reach in international markets,
particularly in regions with growing economies and a high demand for textiles.
Got it.
They specifically mention Southeast Asia and Africa as potential targets.
That's an interesting strategy.
It is.
I mean, those regions offer tremendous growth potential.
Yeah.
But they also come with their own set of challenges, right? Different regulatory environments, cultural nuances, established competitors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Breaking into new markets is never a cakewalk.
It's not.
But it seems like Sanathan is willing to take calculated risks.
They are.
To achieve their growth objectives.
Yeah.
Speaking of risks, we touched on some of the major ones earlier.
We did.
Like raw material price volatility and export dependency. But let's delve a little deeper into those risks.
Okay.
What specific concerns should potential investors be aware of?
Well, when it comes to raw materials, cotton prices are a major concern for Sanathan. You know, as we discussed, cotton prices can swing wildly based on a multitude of factors, you know, weather patterns, global demand.
Even speculation in the commodity markets.
Exactly.
So they're basically at the mercy
they are.
of forces beyond their control. How can they mitigate this risk? Do they have any hedging strategies in place?
Well, their prospectuses don't provide a lot of detail on their hedging strategies, which is a bit of a red flag for me. I think investors will definitely want to dig deeper and understand how Sanathan plans to protect itself from these, you know, wild swings.
A lack of transparency on risk management can be a deal breaker.
It can.
For some investors. Now let's talk about their export dependency.
Okay.
They mentioned targeting new markets in Southeast Asia and Africa. But which regions are they currently reliant on?
Well, their December prospectus highlights Gujarat and Maharashtra as their top 2 domestic markets, accounting for a whopping 65% of their revenue.
Wow, that's a significant concentration.
It is.
So not only are they heavily reliant on exports, but they're also heavily reliant on a couple of key domestic markets. What about their international sales? Any specific countries they depend on?
Unfortunately, they don't break down their export sales by country, but we do know that their top 10 distributors globally generated a significant portion of their revenue in recent years.
Okay, so there's definitely a concentration risk with both their domestic and international sales.
Exactly.
What about the regulatory landscape? What potential curveballs could come their way from that direction?
Environmental regulations are a major focus for the textile industry. And for good reason. Textile production can be very resource intensive, you know, consuming large amounts of water, potentially generating significant pollution as global pressure mounts to address climate change and promote sustainable practices. Governments around the world are tightening regulations on the textile industry.
So Sanathan needs to be proactive about staying ahead of those regulations and demonstrating a commitment to environmentally sound practices. Otherwise, they could face hefty fines, operational disruptions, even damage to their brand reputation.
Absolutely. Sustainability is not just a buzzword anymore. It's becoming a critical factor for success in the textile industry.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this part of our deep dive. We've explored Sanathan's competitive landscape, their reliance on specific markets, and the risks they face, from volatile raw material prices and evolving environmental regulations. We've also gained some insights into their leadership team. Their ambitious growth strategy and their efforts to expand into new markets. But the story's not over yet.
Not quite.
In the final part of our deep dive, we'll tie all these threads together and tackle the big question.
All right.
Is Sanathan Textiles a smart investment?
The big one.
So stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Where we'll weigh the pros and cons and try to untangle this investment puzzle.
Looking forward to it.
All right. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into Sanathan Textiles.
Yeah, we've reached the moment of truth.
We've scrutinized their business model. We've navigated their financial statements. We've mapped out their competitive landscape.
Yeah, we've really gone through it all.
We've unpacked their growth ambitions, their leadership team.
We've seen those risks too.
We've untangled all those critical risk factors that could make or break their success.
Exactly.
So we've laid out all the threads. We've examined every fiber of their story. And now it's time to answer the question. On every potential investor's mind.
A big one.
Is Sanathan Textiles a yarn worth investing in?
Well, it's not a simple yes or no answer. You know, there are compelling arguments on both sides of this loom.
So what are the potential rewards that have you maybe leaning towards a buy recommendation?
Okay, well, one of the most compelling factors is their strategic focus on polyester yarn production. As we've discussed, there's this clear global trend away from cotton and towards polyester. And Sanathan is really well positioned to capitalize on that shift. They've got the expertise, the infrastructure. They're even investing in a new state-of-the-art facility dedicated to polyester production.
So they're riding that polyester ways with confidence.
They are.
But their financials have been a bit shaky lately. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, that's $1 million question.
With this optimistic outlook.
While their recent dip in profitability is a concern, it's important to remember that the textile industry is cyclical and subject to external pressures, like fluctuating raw material costs. You know, Sanathan's management team has a proven track record of navigating these cycles and their commitment to debt reduction. Through the IPO proceeds suggests they're taking steps to address those financial challenges.
So there's a potential for a turnaround.
There is.
On the financial front. But what about those risks we discussed, like their heavier reliance on exports and just a few key markets?
How can investors feel confident about those vulnerabilities?
Those are valid concerns.
They are.
And no investment is without risk.
But Sanathan's expansion into new markets, like Southeast Asia and Africa, could really help to diversify their revenue streams.
Got it.
And kind of mitigate that dependence on any single region. Their focus on innovation and developing specialized yarns also gives them a competitive edge and reduces their reliance on just commodity-based products.
So it's a little bit of a balancing act.
It is.
Acknowledging those risks while also recognizing their efforts to address them.
Exactly.
What about their commitment to sustainability?
Right.
How does that factor into the overall investment thesis?
Well, that's a huge plus in their favor.
Okay.
Consumers are increasingly demanding sustainable products. Investors are taking notice.
Yeah.
Sanathan's zero liquid discharge facility demonstrates a tangible commitment to environmentally responsible practices, which could really enhance their brand reputation, attract investors who prioritize ESG principles, and even reduce their operational costs in the long run.
It seems like there's a lot to like about Sanathan Textiles.
There is.
Strategic focus on a growing market, seasoned management team, commitment to sustainability, and proactive steps to address their financial challenges.
For sure.
Are there any red flags that potential investors should be wary of?
Absolutely. It would be irresponsible to paint an entirely rosy picture. The lack of transparency regarding their hedging strategies for raw material price volatility is a definite concern. Investors need more information to really assess how Sanathan plans to protect itself from these unpredictable market forces.
So some unanswered questions on the risk management front.
There are.
Anything else that has you feeling hesitant?
Well, their heavy reliance on a few key distributors, both domestically and internationally, is another red flag for me. If they lose one of those major clients, it could significantly impact their revenue. So investors will want to dig deeper into their customer concentration risk and understand their strategies for diversifying their client base.
So a mixed bag of pros and cons.
It is.
As with most investments. It seems like Sanathan Textiles has the potential to be a rewarding investment. But it also comes with its fair share of risks. So what's your final verdict?
Well, honestly,
is it a buy? Is it a hold? Is it a pass?
It's impossible to make a blanket recommendation based solely on the information in these prospectuses. Every investor has a different risk tolerance, different financial goals, different investment strategy.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. What advice would you give to someone who's genuinely interested in investing in Sanathan Textiles?
I think, first and foremost, do your homework. Don't rely solely on the information presented in the prospectus. Dig deeper, analyze their financial statements in detail.
Become a textile detective.
Exactly.
Scrutinize every detail. And make sure you're comfortable with the level of risk involved.
Exactly. Talk to financial advisors. Read industry reports. And consider the IPO pricing carefully. Make sure it aligns with your own valuation of the company and your investment objectives.
Wise words. Investing is never a decision to be taken lightly. It requires careful consideration, thorough research, and a willingness to accept both the potential rewards and the inherent risks.
Absolutely. And remember, this is just a snapshot in time. The textile industry is constantly evolving.
It is.
Sanathan Textiles is going to have to adapt and innovate to stay ahead of the curve. So keep an eye on their progress. Monitor their financial performance. Be prepared to adjust your investment strategy as needed.
That's great advice. Investing is a journey.
It is.
Not a destination. It requires ongoing learning, careful monitoring, and a willingness to adapt to those changing market conditions.
Well said.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive
into
Sanathan Textiles. We've examined the threads of their story, explored their potential, and unearthed those risks that lie beneath the surface. So now, armed with this knowledge, the decision is in your hands. So weigh the evidence. Trust your instincts. And remember, the most important investment you can make is in your own financial education.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us.
Happy investing, everyone.